Look at this. I bought a new dress. Guess how much it cost for a custom order? That's a really nice dress, isn't it? It must have been quite expensive. $8,000. I bought it with that idiot's bonus. My mother-in-law, Susan, who casually stole and used my bonus to buy a flashy custom-made dress, always looks down on me and only thinks of using me. Does she really believe that the money I earned is all hers? However, I can't stay silent anymore. She has crossed a line that she shouldn't have, and she needs to experience the same. I am Emily, a 32-year-old working housewife living with my in-laws. Shortly after getting married, my father-in-law passed away, and I ended up living in my mother-in-law's house to take care of her since she was living alone. Since I had been living as a career woman after graduating from college, I never became a full-time housewife even after marriage. Even after starting to live with Susan, we split the living expenses. And since my husband wasn't earning much, the discussion of becoming a full-time housewife never came up. Susan isn't in immediate need of care just because she's elderly. So, I was able to focus on my job. At first, Susan took care of the household chores as she used to. But about a month after we started living together, she gradually began to demand that I do more of the chores. If you're at home on your day off, wouldn't it be nice if you did some household chores for today? I'm always the one doing it. Don't you have any compassion for the elderly? I'm sorry. I'll do it in the evening, so can I have a little rest now? I've been working without a day off for the past month. I've been doing housework without a break, too. This is why the young people these days are no good. You should stop being so selfish and think about mom a bit more. Otherwise, there's no point in us living with mom, is there? Being appointed as a project leader, I was swamped with work every day. Coming home to even more work after long hours of overtime. Feeling a bit uncomfortable with Susan demanding household chores from me, while she says nothing to my husband who comes home on time. Of course, I understand what Susan is saying. Living in my in-laws' house, it's natural to help with the household chores. So, before going to work, I would prepare breakfast, and after coming home, I would clean up after dinner, doing what I could. However, her demands escalated more and more. Do you remember where you put the laundry? I can't find the shirt I'm supposed to wear tomorrow. I even looked outside. Huh? Laundry? I'm not doing that. It's piled up in the washing machine. What? Has it been in the washing machine for a long time? I don't need to worry about what to wear. So if there's a need for laundry, you should do it. Just because you live in this house doesn't mean you can expect me to do everything for you. I never intended to make Susan do all the household chores, and in fact, since moving into this house, I had started to do about half of the chores. Unsatisfied with just that, she deliberately did nothing herself, forcing me to do the household chores. If I didn't do the laundry, I'd have no work shirts to wear, and no matter how tired I was, I had to run the washing machine myself. Just as the project I was entrusted with began to settle down, and my return time started getting earlier, I found myself preparing dinner and, a year after moving in, doing almost all the household chores. Look, I'll do it when I have time. But doing all the household chores while working is physically very tough. Couldn't you talk to her a little? Huh? Do you know how old mom is now? You're younger, so it's only natural you do it. Then why don't you help out? We're splitting the living expenses, and if you don't want your mom to do the chores, shouldn't you help? It's impossible for me to handle everything on my own. Come on, I'm a man. I don't need to do housework. Stop nagging all the time. Housework is women's work, and it's wrong to make an elderly mother do it. So, in the end, you have to do the chores. Why can't you understand something so simple? Despite both of us working and sharing the expenses, the expectation that I do the household chores was shocking. The idea of not wanting to burden his elderly mother might seem like he's a considerate son, but underneath lies a demeaning view of me as a domestic servant. However, life was not all stress. The project I was managing was on track, and work was going smoothly. Then, the company announced it would give out bonuses. My bonus was in the 5 figures, and I planned to save a portion and use the remaining $8,000 for a family trip. By family, I meant my parents, not my husband and his mother. I've got time off from work, so I'm going on a trip with my parents at the beginning of next month. I want to do something nice for them for a change. Despite my husband and Susan's displeased faces, it was my right to use my hard-earned money however I wished. I was excited about escaping this life and went ahead with the travel plans. After finalizing them, I thought to deposit the leftover money in the bank. But when I checked the envelope, my heart sank. What? The money's gone. The bonus I had stored in the envelope had disappeared. Thinking it might have been stolen, I hurried to confront my husband and Susan in the living room. Have you seen my bonus? It's gone. Well, you've come at the right time. Have you seen this? My custom-made dress has arrived. I bought it with your bonus. What? It's really pretty, isn't it? You said you wanted to do something for your parents. But you'll take care of me too, right? At that moment, I was overwhelmed with despair and anger. How could you use my bonus without my permission? This is a joke, right? It's no joke. You noticed the money was missing from the envelope. So you came here looking so frantic, didn't you? A bonus is extra money you get, it's meant to be spent. My earnings may seem like small change to you. It's not like it was tens of thousands. Stop making such a big deal out of it. It's not that simple. There are things you're allowed to do and things you aren't there? Can't you, as an adult, understand such a basic distinction? I was seething with rage at their nonchalant confession of using my bonus without any malice. It might have been endearing if they had asked for permission or requested something specific. But considering I had been treated like a maid up until now, there was no way I'd agree to such requests. Perhaps they knew that and decided to use the money without asking. I could no longer tolerate their cruel actions. Using someone else's money without permission is insane. Insane? What kind of way is that to talk about someone? Who's the one lacking common decency here? Are you being looked after by your parents or my mother? Who do you think you owe? We're living in Mom's house, aren't we? And she's the one we live with every day. Why would you spend your bonus on your own parents and not a penny on my mom? That's where the problem lies. Why does my husband think I owe his mother anything? I'm the one taking care of her, and I'd rather not live with her if possible. If she had been doing all the household chores and supporting me wholeheartedly, I might have considered using half of my bonus for her. My decision to use the bonus entirely for myself and my parents was a result of their actions. My husband's inability to understand this left me dumbfounded. I don't care anymore. But you're definitely returning the money you used. You won't get away with using someone else's money as if nothing happened. We don't have the money, so how can we return it? It's impossible. You stole someone's money. How can you say you bear no responsibility for that? Do you think such an excuse is acceptable? Despite my anger, Susan remained smug, showing no intention of admitting her fault or returning the money. But such wrongdoing couldn't possibly be justified. I was determined to get my money back. It seemed Susan knew I would be upset and had prepared her defense in advance. It's impossible to pay back what I don't have. And legally, I have the upper hand. Your family, so using the money isn't an issue. If you don't like it, go consult the police or a lawyer. Technically, she wasn't wrong. The police wouldn't handle a case of a family member using money. As infuriating as it was, I couldn't counter her argument. Let's not think anything strange. Let's continue to get along. Don't be so disrespectful to Mom. The discussion ended with them feeling superior, but I was not about to stay silent. That evening, Susan, donning her proudly purchased dress, went out with my husband, probably for dinner. I stayed home, not just because I felt sick, but for another reason. After they left, I entered Susan's room and took an envelope from the dresser. Then went to my husband's study to search for something before packing my bags and heading to my parents' home. Later that night, Susan, having returned from dinner, called me in a fury. Hello? Where are you? Why do I have to tell you that? You stole my money, didn't you? The money in the dresser is gone. Well, what could you be referring to? Stop playing dumb. You thief. At 11 p.m., she called, yelling through the phone. Such a lack of decency. While thinking this, I couldn't help but chuckle. Hey, what are you laughing at? Do you steal the money and then what? What are you thinking? Are you talking about yourself by any chance? You are the one who stole my bonus, remember? We're not talking about that now. That wasn't stealing. I was just taking my due filial piety for all the care I've given you. Anyway, this has nothing to do with your current theft. She kept yelling, clearly agitated. My husband then chimed in from his phone. Hey, you stole my money too. You thief. Return the money quickly. Where have you run off to? Incredibly, my husband was also labeling me a thief. But there was no reason for me to be accused. Indeed, I had collected their hidden savings, taking back $4,000 from each, totaling $8,000. Without permission, sure, it might look like theft. But they had unabashedly used my bonus without calling it theft. So, my actions shouldn't be considered theft either. How am I treated like a thief for doing exactly what you both did? If I'm a thief, then your mother is one too, isn't she? That's... Hey. Why are you labeling me as a thief? I'm no thief. Besides, this has nothing to do with me. Why are you taking my unrelated money too? Ridiculous. They were only worried about their money. Not even considering an apology or discussing the matter with me. Their logic was all over the place. The foolishness of those obsessed with money was evident. After being treated like a maid and, on top of that, having my money stolen. Is anything permissible just because we're family? Their fundamentally rotten human nature was more than I could bear. So I decided to express my feelings one last time and hang up. First, Susan, if you're calling me a thief, then recognize that you are too. And I'd like you to tell your son that siding with and aiding his mother makes him equally guilty. Then, goodbye. With that, I ended the call. My phone kept ringing, but I ignored it all. I planned to send the divorce papers by mail and cut ties with them. But the next day, unbelievably, they showed up at my parents' house. Open up. You're in there, aren't you? What are you thinking, coming to my parents' house? And making such a racket this early? Please stop, it's disturbing. Return my money. You thief. That's right. You thieving woman. Give back our money. They stood at my parents' doorstep early in the morning, shouting. It was a nuisance to the neighborhood, and I didn't want to be misunderstood as a thief. Faced with these two utterly unreasonable people, I nearly lost my temper. But before I could say anything, my father quickly came out to handle the situation. "What are you thinking, causing such a disturbance here? Can't you just go home? Your daughter has stolen our money and run off. As her father, you should be making her take responsibility. Just return the money, and there won't be any problem. If not, we'll just keep shouting here. How about I call the police then?" My father's calm suggestion of involving the police seemed to momentarily freeze them in their tracks. He didn't confront them head-on but rather hinted at legal consequences, catching them off guard. "Do you realize I could sue you for defamation for calling my daughter a thief? Yelling like this is disturbing the peace of our neighborhood as well. Actually, why don't we just call the police now?" "No, wait, not the police. This isn't about the police. What your daughter did is fundamentally wrong. Stealing money should be paid back. That's the normal thing to do. My daughter has told me everything. Wasn't it you who misused her money without permission? If you're willing to atone for that, we can talk about returning the money. But you justify your actions, don't you? Then, accusing my daughter doesn't hold. If there's an issue, why not file a complaint with the police? If you're so convinced she's a thief, filing a report seems the right step." Faced with a concrete way forward, they fell silent. After being warned that any further disturbance would lead to a police call, and that defamation charges were on the table, they reluctantly left. Perhaps realizing that showing up at our house was a bad idea, they resorted to messaging me multiple threats about going to the police if I didn't return the money. I ignored them all. If they wanted to report to the police, they were welcome to try. I had no intention of engaging with such people any longer. They apparently considered taking legal action. But any lawyer would tell them the police wouldn't deal with such a family matter, leaving them with no recourse. While they felt wronged, all I did was retrieve the exact amount they took from me, causing them no actual harm. It seems there was a heated argument between my husband and his mother about whether to sell the custom-made dress or not. My husband felt wronged, believing he hadn't misused any money himself. Yet his savings were gone, potentially justifying his resentment towards his mother. My decision to take money from my husband's hidden savings was influenced by his unwavering support for his mother, embodying a sort of collective responsibility. I was resigned to whatever consequences might follow, believing they had brought this upon themselves. Unexpectedly, my husband reached out, presenting a shocking revelation. "I've cut ties with Mom. Can you come back? I was wrong to side with someone like her. Disowned your mother. Can she manage to live on her own? I don't know. But I don't care about her life anymore. But I need you. Can you please come back?" "Huh? There's no way I'm coming back. Just so you know. I've also spoken to your company about this. Because a person who's fine with stealing money from family members should be handled with caution if they're in charge of finances." My unexpected confession left my husband silent for a few seconds. But my report to his company was real. Although I'm not sure about any actual penalties, he'll likely lose his place in the company completely. I continued with the discussion on divorce, telling him that I would send the divorce papers to his office and he should sign them and submit them to the courthouse. Then, I hung up the phone. After ending all communication with him, I began my new life alone, unconcerned with whatever difficulties my ex-husband and former mother-in-law were facing. I was focused on enjoying my life on my own terms.
Hey, why were you both in the bathroom together?
My 4-year-old daughter pointed at my husband and my older sister, uttering these curious words. To me, it was an innocent question, but for my husband, it seemed like a bombshell. He tried to maintain composure, forcing a smile, but the panic in his eyes was evident. Sweat beaded on his forehead, streaming down like a flood.
I saw you. What were you doing there?
Her relentless innocence left my husband flustered. Suspiciously, he stammered, and I resolved to uncover the secret hidden behind that bathroom door. I'm Olivia, a 33-year-old and working in a major food company in a regular position. My husband, Michael, and I met 6 years ago through a mutual acquaintance. Our connection blossomed, and a year later, we tied the knot. Following my pregnancy, we used our combined savings as a down payment and secured a mortgage to buy an apartment. Soon after, I gave birth to our daughter, Mia, and returned to work after maternity leave. Balancing work, household chores, and parenting was a juggling act, but luckily, my husband cherished our daughter and was incredibly supportive. Living near both sets of parents, mine and my husband's, plus my sister and her spouse, we had a strong support network. Especially my sister, Sophia, who didn't work and had no children of her own, doted on Mia like her own. When Mia turned 3, I was entrusted with a crucial work project that often required weekend overtime. At times like that, my sister would come over to our house for my lonely daughter, and often spent time together with my husband and daughter. I felt immense gratitude toward her. Thanks to this arrangement, I successfully completed the project and even secured a promotion. Everything seemed perfect, and I basked in happiness. Little did I know that betrayal from someone I trusted would shatter this idyllic life. At that moment, I couldn't fathom the cruel reality awaiting me. It was my daughter's 4th birthday party, and our home was filled with not only our immediate family but also both sets of grandparents and my sister's family. As everyone celebrated and watched our daughter open presents, she beamed with joy, and the adults reveled in her growth. It was a harmonious and pleasant time. However, the atmosphere took an odd turn when my sister excused herself to use the bathroom. My daughter suddenly asked,
Why doesn't Daddy go with Sophia?
Her words caught my sister off guard, and she paused. Why would Daddy go with her? Going to the bathroom is something you do alone, right? I responded absent-mindedly, assuming my daughter was referring to her toilet training days, even though she was now capable of going by herself. But then my daughter uttered unexpected words.
But I saw you both go together the other day.
Really? I asked, taken aback.
Yeah,
She continued innocently.
I saw you. But why were you both in the bathroom together? You're adults. That's weird.
Her smile remained intact as she questioned us. What was Mia talking about? Confused, I glanced at my husband. His reaction was evident. He looked startled, eyes darting left and right, sweat forming on his forehead.
Oh, last Sunday, right? We were fixing a clogged toilet together.
He stammered. My sister chimed in.
Yes, that's right. It was quite a challenge.
My husband forced a dry laugh, but he kept fidgeting intensely and seemed restless. My sister wore a similar strained smile, nodding along. The other adults, including me, were speechless, taken aback by this unusual exchange.
Let's watch a DDD with Daddy over there, Mia.
My husband quickly changed the subject.
Yay!
Mia agreed. My sister added.
Almost forgot. I was heading to the bathroom.
They hurriedly left the room, escaping the awkward tension they had created. Something seemed suspicious. The truth was, my husband occasionally told silly lies. It was trivial stuff, pretending to shower when he hadn't, blaming our daughter for eating my stored snacks from the fridge, and other minor things. When I sensed his deception, I'd usually respond with a nonchalant, "Oh, really?" But in those moments, he'd invariably start babbling with feeble excuses, digging his own grave. And without fail, his eyes would dart around, and he'd break into a sweat. Doubts about my husband led me to have a conversation with my daughter after everyone had left that day. "Hey, Mia, did you see the toilet clogged at home?"
I don't know. Daddy and Sophia always lock the bathroom.
"Always? Haven't Daddy and Sophia gone to the bathroom together more than once?" Sophia was my sister. Mia nodded, confirming that my husband and sister frequently went to the bathroom together. Her innocent words left me feeling uneasy. Plus, I'd never heard my husband mention a clogged toilet before. What could my husband and sister be doing in there every time? Surely not. Despite my growing suspicion, I dismissed the thought. After all, it was my sister. Betrayal from her seemed inconceivable. Torn between emotions, I decided to investigate their actions for now. During a weekend overtime shift, I decided to set up the baby monitor camera we used when our daughter was an infant. After returning home, I checked the recorded footage and was left utterly speechless. My husband and sister, wearing expressions I'd never seen before, affectionate and intimate, had their arms around each other, behaving inappropriately. Even that alone was behavior I didn't want in front of our daughter. But then, from the audio data on the baby monitor, I heard the decisive words,
"I love you."
Me too.
They exchanged kisses, completely unaware of our daughter watching. "Caught red-handed!" I screamed internally. Eventually, my husband's words,
"I'll take you to heaven today too,"
accompanied by their intertwined hands, led them toward the bathroom. They didn't return to the living room for quite some time. How dare they engage in such indecent behavior right under our daughter's nose? What heaven are they talking about? Both of them will pay in hell. Mark my words. I vowed never to forgive my husband and sister, igniting the flames of revenge. After much internal struggle, I decided to gather decisive evidence of the affair. While the baby monitor footage alone should suffice, I knew that merely confronting my husband with a kiss wouldn't be enough. He'd likely counter with excuses. I couldn't bear to hear his flimsy explanations. Yet, installing a camera in the bathroom felt too invasive. So, I set a trap. Conveniently, our daughter had an overnight stay at daycare scheduled for the following weekend. I fabricated a sudden business trip, and my husband's eyes lit up. "I'm sorry for always leaving everything to you."
"Don't worry about it. I'm more concerned about you working too hard. Take care of yourself."
"Yes, thank you. You should be careful too." My words carried a different meaning, but he seemed oblivious, already imagining something else, as if my words didn't reach him. On the appointed day, after dropping our daughter off at daycare, I headed to a nearby diner. Checking the baby monitor footage on my phone while keeping an eye on the street, I saw my sister eagerly approaching our house. Soon, through the camera, I witnessed my husband answering the intercom and welcoming her inside. A few seconds later, they both returned to the living room, completely undressed. My, how hungry are they? I recoiled at their audacity, then hurried home to confront them. As I unlocked the door and entered the house, I noticed discarded clothing strewn across the entrance. However, there was no sign of the two individuals in the living room. Could it be? In our bedroom? Trembling with anger, I headed toward the bedroom. But just then, I caught sight of a figure on the balcony. It seemed that both of them had sensed my return and instinctively fled to the balcony. Through the glass, I observed my husband and sister crouched in the corner, peering fearfully in my direction. Witnessing my husband's frightened eyes and my sister's slack-jawed expression, I was overwhelmed with intense revulsion and locked the door, leaving them both outside. He had finally realized that hiding was futile. He, one hand awkwardly covering a certain part of his body, tapped on the window, pleading,
Olivia, it's not what you think. I want to clear up the misunderstanding, so please let me in for now.
My sister clung to his back like a baby koala, desperately trying to conceal herself. Hey, why are you still talking about misunderstandings? This is a caught-in-the-act situation. My husband retorted.
We hadn't done anything yet. It was just an attempt, so cut us some slack.
Don't play games with me. Do you think I'm unaware of what you both usually do in the bathroom?
That's a misunderstanding too. We were really just fixing a clogged toilet.
Exasperated by my husband's poor excuses, I revealed that I had set up a surveillance camera in the living room to watch what was going on. I saw both of you being affectionate. You even went as far as kissing, didn't you?
Hugs and kisses are just friendly gestures. I wanted to raise Mia to be friendly with people.
Cheating doesn't fall under friendly gestures. So why did you both head to the bathroom afterward?
That's because the toilet was clogged. We were planning to contact the manufacturer since it happened too frequently.
I relentlessly pressed my husband for answers, but he continued with flimsy excuses. He refused to acknowledge his guilt, and I was thoroughly exasperated by his unyielding attitude. As I remained silent, my husband switched tactics, using a soft voice to say, "It's cold," or "I might catch a cold." But when he realized I wasn't budging, he suddenly grew aggressive. His demeanor changed, and he pounded on the glass, shouting at me.
Enough! You think you can just stay quiet and get away with it? If you don't open up, I'll break this glass.
I sighed at his despicable behavior. Fine, then admit your relationship with Sophia. Today isn't the first time, is it?
Fine, I'll admit it. Sophia and I have been getting close in the bathroom for the past 6 months. Don't make a fuss over something so trivial.
Wow, now you're just being defiant. You're truly despicable. As I unlocked the window, my husband and sister leaped inside like startled boars.
Hey, how could you do this?
He lunged at me, but in the next moment, he noticed the figure behind me and widened his eyes.
Dad! And everyone else!
In fact, on my way from the diner to home, I had contacted my parents, in-laws, and my sister's husband. Without needing a detailed explanation, they immediately understood the situation, having witnessed my husband and sister's strange behavior during our daughter's birthday party. They rushed over to support me.
You shameless scoundrel!
My husband, cowed by his father's angry voice, had lost all his bravado. Just then, our doorbell rang. It was a police officer. Apparently, a neighbor had reported suspicious activity on the balcony. My husband, clad in nothing but a bath towel, profusely apologizing to the police, curious neighbors, and onlookers who had gathered. Eventually, after the police left, my husband returned to the living room alongside my sister, both still wrapped in bath towels. They faced the stern reprimands of our respective parents.
I'm sorry. It was just a momentary lapse. Olivia doesn't pay attention to me because of work, and I got carried away.
I'm truly sorry too. My husband has been busy, and I felt lonely.
Despite their tearful apologies, they continued to frame the situation as if my brother-in-law and I were somehow at fault.
Do you really think those excuses will fly?
However, my feelings for my husband had long since cooled, and I didn't even feel anger anymore. Enough. Let's get a divorce, I declared, thrusting the divorce papers I had already obtained from the registry office toward my husband. At that moment, my brother-in-law chimed in, also mentioning his divorce with my sister. Feel free to use these, I said, handing him an extra set of divorce papers.
Wait a minute.
Seeing the divorce papers, my husband's face paled, and he clung to me.
Olivia, I'm sorry. I truly love only you. Let's start anew, like flushing away the past, just as we do with the toilet lever.
What? What are you saying now? I can't forgive you for doing something indecent in Mia's presence.
I had no choice. Sophia kept pestering me. Her persistence wore me out.
Suddenly, my sister, who had been sobbing quietly, changed her expression. She grabbed my husband's hair and shouted at him.
Hey, don't blame others. You were the one who made the first move, weren't you?
Shut up. I thought it was just innocent physical contact. But you took it seriously. You love-struck fool.
Huh? Which one? I said after Mia took her nap. But weren't you the one who couldn't wait and lured me to the bathroom?
That's rich, coming from you. I suggested going to the bath. But wasn't it you who said the toilet would be more thrilling?
The two began an ugly quarrel, trying to pin the blame on each other. Enough already. It doesn't matter who, it's just disgraceful. After that, they both hung their heads in shame as they were scolded by everyone present, following my lead. And even then, they continued to mumble some resistance, but the more they spoke, the more they were bombarded with criticism. In the end, we both signed the divorce papers with our parents as guarantors. Shortly thereafter, divorces were successfully finalized for both my husband and me, as well as my sister and brother-in-law. I demanded alimony of $20,000 and child support of $70,000 from my husband, as well as $35,000 for the apartment we bought together, and $14,000 in compensation from my sister. My husband and sister were each sued by my brother-in-law for $14,000 in damages. Meanwhile, the scandal had become neighborhood gossip, and my husband, unable to continue living in the apartment, was forced to sell it, leaving him with a debt of $200,000, including the remaining mortgage. His embarrassing reputation had even reached his workplace, leading him to resign soon after. Now, my husband and sister, estranged from their parents, share a rundown apartment without a bath but with a toilet. They struggle to repay their debts and constantly argue. On the other hand, I return to my parents' home with my daughter. Her grandparents still treat her kindly, so she doesn't feel lonely. Grateful for everyone's support, I've resolved to raise my daughter well and continue working diligently.
How did you find this story? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Until next time in the next video.